Thank you, Madam Speaker. That was a 7-minute answer from the Minister, following on from a 10-minute answer yesterday. Pretty self-indulgent. Madam Speaker, my question's to the Premier. Premier, in January this year, fires ripped through Tasmania's Wilderness World Heritage Area, torching tens of thousands of hectares of wilderness, some of which, as we know, will never recover. At the time, you said you wrote to the Prime Minister to flag a request for additional funding to protect the Twa. 9 months later, and with an early bushfire season already here, in Senate estimates last week, Senator Nick McKim had it confirmed that your government has, as yet, made no request for extra money. Premier, how do you explain that delay, given the urgent need for more resources to protect the Twa from burning beyond repair again this summer?
Thank you. The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the member for the question and do note, obviously, not only the significant impact of the bushfire season gone, but also the preparedness that we have in place for the upcoming season.
Why don't you tell us?
And
your Minister is not telling
that has been well covered by the Minister. And I would urge the members who asked the question to inform themselves of the facts around this. It's not adequate now for you to simply send a staffer along to listen, so you can then come into this place with some deniability and deliberately plead ignorance when a lot of work is being done by our excellent fire service and emergency services personnel to best prepare our state. In fact, similarly, under this government, we have reduced the fire risk to our state, Madam Speaker, but we do need to ensure that all communities remain vigilant and provide our support to our fire service. In relation to the season past, though, I have written to the Prime Minister, I have spoken to the Prime Minister. We are still assessing the cost of those bushfires to our state. The total cost at this stage, I'm advised, is around $80 million, and that includes almost $60 million for firefighting costs. The Tasmanian Government will, in due course, and it's appropriate once the extent of those costs are fully known, will be making a claim to the Australian Government under the disaster recovery funding arrangements to alleviate the financial burden on the state. We'll be formally requesting additional financial assistance from the Australian Government in relation to the costs incurred in protecting the environmental and heritage assets.
When?
And as I say, Madam Speaker, and if you listen to the answer, it is appropriate for that to occur once the full extent of those costs are known, so appropriate application can be made. State and territory governments have until the 31st of March 2020 to submit the 2018-19 financial year claims to the Australian Government. The arrangements are complex and subject to 2 separate audit processes. So it's therefore absolutely essential that our agencies, the experts who are entrusted with compiling this information, are enabled to have the sufficient time necessary to ensure that claims are accurate, so we don't sell ourselves short and don't miss out on funding opportunities for the state. So we have certainly made our position very clear. As I say, I did write to the Prime Minister, so it's not something that's open to question. I think you suggested that I said I may have written to the Prime Minister. I want you to be aware that I did.
To the Prime Minister.
So you're not worried about getting that $50 million now? Everything's all right? 80 million?
It's always so simple and so easy for the Greens, who don't have the responsibility of following the well-outlined, well-documented, well-understood processes to ensure that Tasmania gets all that it deserves. If we took the Greens approach and just ran in half-cock, we'd sell our state short and likely miss out on additional funding support for our firefighting costs incurred, including in protecting our environmental assets. In response, I should add this to the record as well, the Prime Minister reiterated the Commonwealth support, and as a result, the Department of Premier and Cabinet has been working with Emergency Management Australia in the Department of Home Affairs and Tasmania's Department of Police, Fire and Emergency Management to analyse firefighting costs and to determine the portion of costs incurred in protecting our environmental assets. And this additional funding application will be in addition to the $9.9 million received for the Community Recovery Grant, which was jointly funded by the Tasmanian and Australian governments to restore damaged parks and wildlife infrastructure and other recovery measures for the bushfires affected communities, Central Highlands, Derwent Valley, Huon Valley and West Coast. So, Madam Speaker, of course, we will always endeavour to ensure that we get appropriate and justifiable support from the Commonwealth to assist us with the significant costs that have been incurred, but we will always do the right thing by our state and make sure that we are best placed through our agencies to provide a full account of the damage and to recover that in due course as that process properly allows.